Live from the European Parliament here in Strasbourg, this is Raw Politics. Thank you for joining us tonight, and this is what we have for you on the menu. Merkel's Europe. The German Chancellor lays out her vision for the EU and calls for a European army. France first. US President Donald Trump trolls Emmanuel Macron in a furious Twitter rant. Brexit last chance. Breaking news we're tracking reports that the EU and UK have finally agreed on a divorce plan. Romanian row, a slap on the wrist delivered in Strasbourg over the so-called rule of law. And meeting Mrs. Macron, the case of mistaken identity that put Angela Merkel on the spot. All right, it is time to meet our panelists for tonight. Joining us is Udo Bullmann. He's a German MEP with the Social Democratic Party. Udo, which of these stories do you like?
Hey, of course, I have fun with the old lady mixing up Merkel with Mrs. Macron. But on the other hand, we have to focus on Merkel in the plenary and giving the European speech today.
No, absolutely. All eyes were on that. And also joining us is David McAllister. He's also a German MEP with the European People's Party. What about you, David?
All five stories are great, but I would go for the Brexit story because we are now really in a crucial phase of negotiations and we need to get a deal done, definitely in December, to get this divorce, which we didn't ask for, done in an orderly manner.
Indeed, a few hours, the clock is ticking. All right, we begin tonight with the German Chancellor because booed at times, receiving a standing ovation at others. Today, Angela Merkel stood before European politicians and leaders and delivered her vision for the future of Europe, a future without the UK and with stronger European unification and a European army. This was Merkel's first message to the European Union since announcing that she was leaving politics after her current term. Now let's take a look at what she had to say.
The times when we could rely on others are past. This means that we as Europeans now have to really take our fate fully into our own hands. We have to work on a vision of one day creating a real, true European army. I'm not saying anything against NATO. Of course not. We can be a good supplement to NATO. And if we could work together and pool our efforts together, then we could work together with NATO, with a European army. I'm really pleased about this. This is great. I'm annoying some people. Nationalism and egotism should no longer have a position in Europe. But tolerance and solidarity represent our common future. And, colleagues, it is well worth fighting for them. Thank you.
Well, you heard a lot of applause there and some booing in the crowd because with the call for a European army, this certainly caught Nigel Farage's attention. And here is what he had to say in response to Angela Merkel's speech.
The idea that this new militarized union is somehow a recipe for peace, I suggest you all sit back and think a little bit more carefully. Maybe you should all reread history. The European project was set up to stop German domination. What you've seen today is a naked takeover bid.
I mean, it was a really fun session to watch today. And this is, Angela Merkel is known for her steady hand, being very serious, not tugging at heartstrings or appealing to loyalties. But today it seemed like there was a different Angela Merkel up on the stage. Have you ever seen her like that? Did it feel like because she's no longer going to be there, she's almost unleashed?
Well, for me, she was giving a nice European speech. This is what I expected. What she committed herself to is, yes, I am a pro-European. Yes, I would like also to lead the German government to also in the future contribute to the development. But she didn't really answer one of the real questions at stake, which are crucial. So take, for example, migration and the asylum package. This House, the European Parliament, passed an asylum package months and months ago, which is blocked in the Council. No word about this, how to unblock with the ministers, with the heads of state and government on this important file. We have to proceed with the deepening of the monetary union. And we have to intensify the economic collaboration. No decisive hint how to doing that in the near future.
Indeed, she was calling for a lot more Europe, and that part is not new. But the way that she was
very vague.
Yeah. What do you think, David? Seeing Angela Merkel like this it's almost like a rallying cry.
Well, I would really like to commend the Chancellor and her speech today. She laid out a clear vision of how she sees the future of the European Union. She covered all the main issues we are discussing in European politics, and the applause at the end of her speech across party lines showed that a huge majority of colleagues supported what she had to tell us.
And to Udo's point, you brought up migration. I mean, this is one of the key issues in her recent leadership that's going to mark her leadership. She admitted that it was a mistake, that she should have listen to others because it was a burden that has to be shared.
Well, the problem is also, if you look at the party family she is in, we do not know who is the PPE anymore, because we have the pro-European stance of Commission's President Juncker. We have a nice speech about the European future, but we also have Mr. Kurz in Austria. He turns his back on the United Nations migration efforts. And on the other hand, you have Orban, who publicly is permanently disgracing foreigners and refugees. So we do not know who the PPE is and how a more homogeneous position of the most important party family in the House can come into existence.
All right. I mean, there are a lot of MEPs were watching this, her speech today. Let's go to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, because he has been speaking to MEPs about what they think about what Angela Merkel has brought to the table. Darren.
What I think is extraordinary, Tessa, about Angela Merkel in many regards is just how long she's been around for. She's been around as Chancellor of Germany before things like iPhones or Facebook were really ever heard of. And for most MEPs, she's been the only German Chancellor they've known since they were at least elected into that position. So I think there was a sense, at least, of respect for her, considering how successful her career has been. And while, as you say, I'd reckon I was there, about 80% of MEPs did give her a standing ovation at the start and the end of her speech. Not everyone was on the same page. There were those boos and jeers, and that is certainly the mood that I found when I spoke to MEPs today about what they thought of Angela Merkel.
I believe that she definitely is a remarkable personality. However, my feeling has always been that she is too much embedded in the 90s.
Well, on the one hand, she has done a lot to try to keep the club together. And, sadly, she has also contributed to split the union.
She's going to quit, and I'm glad for that, because she opened Pandora's box and see what's happening.
Even though I'm a socialist, I have to say that I have a lot of admiration for Angela Merkel, because she is a very strong pro-European leader.
Well, she certainly helped Brexit. I'm going to thank her this afternoon. I'm going to say a big British thank you, because David Cameron came with a begging bowl. She gave him absolutely nothing, no concessions whatsoever. We looked at that. We looked at a German-dominated Europe. We looked at the migrant side, and we said, you know what? We'll vote for Brexit.
I think Angela Merkel really has been the grown-up in the room through some of the biggest crises that the EU has faced in recent years. I think she's been a very welcome voice also on immigration and nationality. She's actually stuck to her promises in terms of how Germany has provided leadership.
Well, Angela Merkel, I think, represents what a true European leader is. She embodies values, and she has taken decisions which were difficult, and when it would have been so much more politically expedient not to do so.
So you think she'll be missed?
She still has the power to write her own heritage.
Nobody can stay at the top forever. For her, in terms of her own historical legacy, it's a sad end.
Of course she will be missed. Definitely by me and all my country.
I am not the greatest fan, I have to say.
I'm very reticent about seeing her say goodbye. I think she's been a force for good.
Everyone, of course, at the end of the day can also be replaced, I hope, with the same strong voice as she was.
Okay, everybody's replaceable, goodness me. It's a great German phrase, everything has an end except for sausages, which have two.
I think what was interesting, though, Tessa, is what united MEPs is this sense that when Angela Merkel does leave the political stage, that she will be missed, whether for good or for bad. But I think MEPs are also divided on how long will this German Chancellor stay in her job, and what opportunity does she still have to change and to shape Europe. Many I spoke to today think that there is no way that she will actually stay on to the end of her term, and that she could well be out of office within the next year.
All right, thank you for that, Darren McCaffrey. I'll put that to you, David. Is she going to be able to last till the end of her current term? I mean, I just want to bring this. 2/3 of Germans think that she should probably step down much earlier. What do you think?
My party, the Christian Democratic Union in Germany, will vote a new leadership on the 7th of December in Hamburg, and we will have a new party leader. But Chancellor Merkel has been very clear that she plans to continue to be the German Chancellor until the end of this legislative term. So this might be 2021. It depends if the grand coalition between us and the Social Democrats will survive.
Is that the wisest thing for her to do, though? Maybe would it be a better alternative, perhaps, if she just stepped down early and just got the new leader in?
Angela Merkel, like many others, has always argued that it's a wise decision to be a chancellor and a party leader in one person. This is now something new. This is something exceptional for our party. But on the other hand, she gave her promise to the German people to run for the whole term, and she is willing to finish her job in office until hopefully 2021.
I mean, Udo, if the coalition holds, what do you think? Will she be able to last till the end of her term, and will she have any influence left?
Well, I think it depends a bit on who is going to be selected in the presidency of the Conservative Party, the CDU, in December. We Social Democrats, we signed a contract. We signed a contract with Merkel as party leader to fulfill our especially European commitments. So that was one of the major reasons why we stepped again into this grand coalition, which is not the most beloved solution in German domestic politics, also on our side. But we gave a signature to a treaty that has to be fulfilled as long as our partners are willing and capable of fulfilling that. During the last months, we had some doubts because what Seehofer organized during the summer break was very questionable, and it didn't look like proper delivery. So we stand ready to do our job, but the rest has to be foreseen.
But what would this mean for Europe? Because a strong Germany is what is seen as a stabilizing hand, especially now. You know, we were talking about the rise of nationalism. They were talking about it over the last few days. Without a strong Germany now, we could compare to when, you know, Angela Merkel was the most influential leader in Europe. What does that make of the fragile, let's say, unity in Europe now, because you can see the rise of nationalism? David.
Germany is the largest country in the European Union. We have the strongest economy, and of course we play a very important role. And fair enough, the German government has been underperforming in the last few months. We were concentrating too much about public acceptance, fighting among each other, between parties and between the government. Now it's time for a new start. We should concentrate on the issues, and there's a lot of work to do, including a German vision, how we see the future of the European Union.
A German vision, but isn't that what gets people angry? Like, why do we always have to follow Germany's vision?
Well, no, on the one hand, people expect leadership of Germany in the European Union, but on the other hand, they don't want to be bullied, and that is a correct approach. Of course, we play an important role. Of course, we have to show special responsibility for the future of the European Union, but one thing is clear, we are one member state among 28.
And do we not remember, I mean, during the sovereign debt crisis, I mean, there was a lot of, Germany was hearing a lot of criticism from countries who felt who had austerity.
My interpretation is a different one. What I think what Europeans expect from Germany is to contribute to solutions and not to bully around and not to always know best what others have to do. So as long as everybody is playing to the rules and Germany invests its economic and political strength towards European solutions, my assessment is that the contribution of the German government and of Germany is very much welcome.
Very quick, just yes or no, Germany will still be the leader in Europe?
We do not want to be the leader. Okay. We want to be one of those who find together solutions.
All right.
And Germany will always be with France.
Always be with
France.
Holding together the unity as Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel wanted to show, especially over the weekend. All right, let's now turn our attention to Brexit. I just want to bring you some breaking news, some developing news that we've been following. Official confirmation now coming out from that the British cabinet will be meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. to consider the draft agreements of the UK and the EU have finally reached an agreement on that. Here is tonight's Brexit brief for you.
Not your average commute to work. Cabinet ministers make their way through the world's most famous door once again today. And you guessed it, they're talking Brexit. Negotiations between London and Brussels have reportedly been continuing long into the night. Also talking into the night, the so-called Pizza Club of Eurosceptic cabinet ministers became the drinks cabinet last night, as they're said to have met to talk strategy over a glass of wine. And a confrontation could be coming. They reportedly agreed that Theresa May's current Brexit plan is totally unacceptable. While they were doing that, Theresa May was doing this. At the lavish Lord Mayor's banquet, the British Prime Minister talked about, you guessed it again, Brexit. She hinted that there's light at the end of the Brexit tunnel.
The negotiations for our departure are now in the end game, and we are working extremely hard through the night to make progress on the remaining issues in the withdrawal agreement, which are significant. Both sides want to reach an agreement, but what we are negotiating is immensely difficult, and I do not shy away from that.
But don't get out the bunting just yet.
Overwhelmingly, the British people want us to get on with delivering Brexit, and I want them to know that I will not compromise on what people voted for in the referendum. This will not be an agreement at any cost.
All right, to talk more about this, I am joined by Hilde Woutman. She is the Belgian MEP from the ALDE group here, and also our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, is with us on the set. Darren, a lot of news coming out right now. So earlier we were hearing reports of finally a divorce plan between the EU and the UK. Now the cabinet is meeting, so it's a done deal?
Well, after all those late nights and the hard work, it looks like finally we've actually got something to say on Brexit this evening. Yeah, it looks like a provisional draft document has been agreed on between the Prime Minister, between the negotiators involved in the UK and Brussels. So at least success, it looks like, on that front. But now, in some ways, the actual really difficult task begins of how to convince the Cabinet and the British Parliament whether they're going to buy this deal. Interestingly, it looks like, on the details of where we are with this draft deal, that there will be just one backstop, and that backstop will be a UK-wide one, but it will within it hold deep provisions for the border on the Irish and the island of Ireland to keep it as frictionless and open as possible, Tessa, as it is now. So that avoids what many don't want, which is a hard border in the Irish Sea, and also, in theory, should avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland. Now, in some ways, that seems like a diplomatic victory for the UK, because what they've been looking for is a UK-wide customs deal. And then the second thing that we're hearing about is that there is a mechanism where this can be revoked. The problem is, and again, this is something the UK wanted, but they wanted to be able to do that unilaterally. We don't know the details of this deal yet, and that could be a crucial thing within it. What happens next? Well, on the UK side, we know that Cabinet Ministers tonight have been briefed on this document, giving access to it to see what it means. And at 2 o'clock tomorrow, we're expecting a special emergency meeting of the UK Cabinet to discuss the details. If Theresa May feels that she can get it through Cabinet, it will then be put to a vote in Parliament, probably next month. But the crucial thing is, can she get Cabinet support? On this side, in Brussels, we're also expecting a meeting of EU ambassadors tomorrow, and we expect them to talk about this deal and what has been agreed at EU level, with the expectation that we could see a special EU Council summit, not this weekend as being planned, but potentially next weekend.
Hilde, I mean, is this almost a sigh of relief for you and for everyone on this side, of the channel?
Well, for me, it's quite astonishing. Still, the British people are discussing between themselves. So it's very difficult for me as a European to tell what can I agree on, because they're still debating between them what they will propose us. For me as a European and in the European Parliament, for me the most important thing is that they go forward with it, because they decided to leave us 2 years ago. And it takes so much time. It's quite incredible that it takes so much time for them to make clear what they want. For me, it's very clear what we want. We want a clear and net Brexit, but to make sure that for us, that the British people don't do on cherry picking. If you want to leave the club, you can't take the advantages with you without paying the money. And that's what the British try to have. I still have.
But I think the view is different. I think, you know, we've heard from some of our guests even on the show that the view is that the UK has put forward what they wanted from the very start. It's Europe who's actually stalling.
No, but you see it now. You see it now that they're still discussing in the cabinet whether the cabinet is accepting what they will propose to us. So I think the debate is really going on between them, and even you hear on the street the British people. If you ask the young people in Britain, they want to join the European Union again, eh? They ask for a new referendum.
I think, though, that where we are with the negotiations and where we have been, actually, really since the start, is that, you know, it was 52-48.
Yes,
the nation is divided, as is Parliament, as is the Conservative Party, and indeed the Labour opposition. I think what's important to look out for over the next, 24, 48 hours, because this will be actually quite crucial, whether Theresa May can get the cabinet on board.
So can we still end up with nothing?
We could still end with no deal. It is still entirely possible that even in 24 hours' time, it'll be perfectly clear that we are heading towards no deal if the cabinet reject it. If people like Dominic Raab, the Brexit secretary, says no to this, or indeed some other people that have been talked about, such as Esther McVey and others, if they resign and say we cannot support this, I don't know what Theresa May then does. Does she go back to Brussels? Many would say at that point she has literally lost her mandate to do so. It is still possible there is no deal, and it will come down to, are the DUP and Brexiteers happy that essentially this UK customs-wide arrangement means no hard border in the Irish Sea? And second of all, are Brexiteers, and this is their greatest concern, is that the UK-wide customs temporary arrangement, of course, this is only a deal to see us through the transition. This is not about the future relation. But they fear that if Britain signs up to it, they will never leave the customs union. And that is why they want this mechanism, that Britain alone can unilaterally withdraw from that at any stage. That will be the crucial bit. We haven't got the detail yet. That will be.
But after the UK, it comes right back to Brussels. To the EU.
It will come.
It's not over after that.
No, we're waiting now what will happen there in Great Britain with the cabinet. But no matter what, we have to discuss it here in the plenary session. No matter what, the European Parliament.
You guys get a vote as well.
We get a vote. Luckily, we get a vote on it. I think it's very important, because what interests me, of course, is that we have a fair Brexit and that we have to build on good relationship. It's a neighboring country. It's a partner. So we have to make a good Brexit deal, like a separation when a couple divorce. I see it like that. But afterwards, we have to keep on with trade, with communication, with working together to fight terrorism. So we have to make that clear, the future
we
relations.
are on the edge of our seats. We really want to know the details of that deal. The devil's in the details. All right, a lot more coming up for you on Raw Politics. MEPs deliver a slap on the wrist to Romania over its rule of law. Plus, the power of protest, a looming showdown over rising fuel prices in France, and what it means for French politics. Don't go away. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, the French President Emmanuel Macron has been on the radar of Donald Trump recently, all because of that idea of coming up with a European army. And Emmanuel Macron faced another vicious attack from the U.S. president today. And let's take a look at what Donald Trump wrote. He's been tweeting all day today. He says, Emmanuel Macron suggests building its own army to protect Europe against the U.S., China and Russia. But it was Germany in World Wars I and II. How did that work out for France? They were starting to learn German in Paris before the U.S. came along. Pay for NATO or not. And he continued tweeting, the problem is that Emmanuel suffers from a very low approval rating in France, 26%, and an unemployment rate of almost 10%. He was just trying to get onto another subject. By the way, there is no country more nationalist than France, very proud people, and rightfully so. And his final swipe at the French president, he said, make France great again. Well, joining me tonight to discuss that, we have still with us Hilde Woutmans. She is a Belgian MEP from the ALDE group. I'll start with you, Hilde, because I'll let you react to that first. What do you think about what Donald Trump has been saying? Well, if I have to react all the time that Donald Trump makes a tweet, I'm not doing anything else anymore in my life because he's twittering all the time. I was very glad that Macron stated that he was in favor of a European army. We heard that today here also in the plenary session, with Angela Merkel also taking for the first time the word European army in the mouth. So I'm very glad with that because we as ALDE, we are very much in favor of that European army because I think we really need that to protect our European citizens. And joining us also is Christine Beaudefa. She's a socialist MEP who sits also on the EU's Transport Committee. I mean, you know, this is criticism of France, but Emmanuel Macron being in the crosshairs of Donald Trump. What do you think about Donald Trump saying, well, you know what, this is very nationalist of France to be calling for a European army?
No, the European army is not nationalist, but European. And this is a strong message, and I don't agree with Emmanuel Macron on a lot of social topics, but on these European topics about army, about European army, European defense, I'm really in favor of it. But we have to make it step by step. First, we have to have a European defense, and we're not there for the moment, but we have to build it. And it's very important to move on this. And it's not a nationalist issue, absolutely not. It's on the contrary, a European issue. And if Donald Trump doesn't want to stay into the NATO, this is his problem. But we want to have protection for our European citizens.
Why would you say it's not nationalist? I mean, it is trying to ramp up.
To want a European army, it's not nationalist because it's European. It's at the level of Europe. It's not at the level of a state. This is why it's completely different from what Donald Trump said. I mean, you brought up NATO. I mean, how likely is it that you can actually come up with a European army, logistically speaking? You already have NATO. You already pour money into NATO.
We need to have a European army. I only counted. We are 28 members of the European Union, which all have their own army. If you put all the money together, we spend 45% of the American budget. But the outcome is only 15%. So if you put it together, you can do much more. And it's not against NATO. I'm Belgium. We have the headquarters of NATO. I'm pro-European and I'm pro-NATO. I think with a strong European defense union and European army, we make a stronger NATO. We have to work all together in the global environment. So for me, it's and. It's not that you have to choose between them. I mean, certainly, I think a lot more debate is going to come out of this European army idea, considering Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel had brought up and supported the idea. All right, another story we're watching related to the French President Macron. He is expected to address the nation tomorrow night and to try to quell rising tensions over demonstrations planned for Saturday that could grind the country to a halt. A social movement known as the Yellow Vests is planning to block roads up and down the country in protest at soaring fuel costs. President Macron has held firm, announcing that he, quote, prefers to tax fuel than workers. But the protest's sheer size means that he is expected to announce measures to calm the flames tomorrow. Meanwhile, fuel price protests also took place in Bulgaria on Sunday, echoing those which toppled the government there back in 2013. President Macron will be all too aware of how politically combustible fuel prices can be.
All right, I'll go back to you, Christine, on this. This is putting Macron is already not on very stable ground, considering his ratings are very low. How dangerous is this, what's happening in France, to him?
It's not dangerous, but Emmanuel Macron and his government has to understand that it's not fair socially and ecologically, because the increasing of this tax isn't going into the ecological transition. Absolutely not. It's just going into the general budget, because it's not earmarked. And what we ask for is to have some proposal to go into the ecological transition. We have to, but not to make pay the poorer and the people that has to use their car to go to work. And for the moment, the government is not giving the means to change their car if it's a pollutant car. But
he said it's better to tax fuel than workers. So it's
the
almost...
problem there is taxing workers because they need their car to go to work. The problem, and this is why this is a citizen movement and not a political one, and we don't have to use it. We have to let the citizen what they are doing, but their anger because they need their car to work. So he's taxing the workers on doing this as long as he won't have a political changing on ecological transition and to give more.
But there was an environmental reason to this as well. The taxing.
No, because it's doing nothing to change the ecological transition. It's not going inside this budget. It's going inside the general budget, but it's not going to change, and it won't change anything about pollution, because people will still use their car to go to work. So it's just to taking the money where it's the easiest way, but it's not socially.
So what is the view from outside of France? I mean, would that put Macron in a precarious position?
Well, I think that the higher prices are more due to the price of a barrel of fuel and not because of the tax rises. I think now the prices will come more or less like the prices are in Belgium. So I think we have that already a long time. But of course, as a liberal, I don't like taxes. I think you have to avoid them. But with putting taxes on that, I think you move people to search for other ways to take the bicycle or to change. So I think it's a matter of environmental.
And as we saw in history, we're looking at past examples. This is a very sensitive situation, especially for governments as well. So something to look out for. All right. Also today in Strasbourg, the latest showdown between the EU and Romania. In a vote this afternoon, MEPs adopted a resolution condemning the country's rule of law. The symbolic telling off comes just 2 months before Romania is due to take on the EU Council presidency for the first time. That's today's Power Play.
It's not the first time the European Parliament has issued a warning to Romania. Back in October, things got heated when MEPs challenged the country's Prime Minister, Viorica Dăncilă, over changes to the country's judicial system.
Madam Prime Minister, you have two options. You can listen to this Parliament, you can listen to the European Commission, you can listen to the Romanian Parliament, you can listen to your people, or you can ignore all the democratic controls.
The Romanian government is accused of endangering democracy after legal reforms included the removal of the country's chief anti-corruption prosecutor. Despite widespread protests, the Prime Minister defended the changes and stressed the popularity of her government.
Noile legi ale justiției le redau judecătorilor independența. Niciun decident politic nu mai intervine în numirea și revocarea judecătorilor. Independența e totală.
But now, the EU is losing patience. As Romania readies itself to take over the EU Council presidency on January the 1st, leaders are questioning whether it will be a partner or a punk. With Hungary and Poland already under scrutiny, will Romania finally heed today's warning?
All right, the EU slapping the wrist of countries in the East. This is not the first time. Will this change anything?
Well, we never know that, of course.
We haven't seen countries listening, so will it?
Yeah. Well, we voted a strong resolution today because the Prime Minister visited the European Parliament a few weeks ago, a month ago, I think. I think it's a strong signal. And I hope Romania will change. We, as Liberals, we voted the resolution all the way a party who is in the government in Romania, but we are pushing to the party that I really change the government's position. I think we can't accept corruption in Europe anymore. We have to fight for the rule of law. We have to fight for the independence of the judges in a country. So for me, it's very, very important that the European Parliament voted that resolution today. And let's hope that they clearly take the signal, listen to the European Parliament and take action in their country.
Well, Christine, is this the right way to go about it from the EU?
We have to have this kind of resolution, and the French socialists voted in favor of this resolution. Even we voted in favor of some amendment to protect LGBTI people, because we have this referendum which was just nonsense in Romania about same-sex marriage, and we voted also for amendment protecting justice in Romania. It's not a la carte rule of law in Europe, and we have to show, because we are the biggest democratic assembly,
so
European
it's a strong
Parliament.
Message,
so it's a strong
coming
message
from the EU. It's the point,
for the moment,
of coming these resolutions.
But if we show that all the time we have a majority against this government, against Poland government and Hungary.
So we'll have to wait and see if the countries actually listen. I mean, this is something, again, we watch out very closely for. All right, coming up on Raw Politics, jackal journalists, the flash mob protest today in response to controversial comments from Italian politicians. Don't go away. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, journalists across Europe are standing up for their Italian counterparts after two Italian politicians verbally attacked the press. Flash mobs popped up today in several European cities, including this one in Brussels. The protesters are angry about comments from Deputy Prime Minister Luigi Di Maio and prominent five-star politician Alessandro Di Battista. They referred to journalists as, quote, jackals, whores, and spreaders of fake news, end quote. Now, all for reporting on the case of a mayor of Rome who had been accused of an abuse of power. All right, I am joined by Ignacio Corrao, an Italian MEP from the Five-Star Movement, and Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, is back with us. I'll start with you, Ignacio. I mean, these are words that are, not very proper for politicians. And these are people from your party as well. What do you have to say about their behavior?
Well, we can discuss about the wording, you know, we can use other wording, but in Italy there is a problem. We have not to see the wording, but we have to see the problem. In Italy we have a big problem with information.
You don't have a problem with the wording?
I mean, yeah, we can talk about the wording, but when Alessandro Di Battista used a very strong wording, he wanted to say that journalists in Italy, they don't have the freedom to express their idea, because the political line of all newspapers is given by the property, and the property is linked with political parties. This is a big problem with information we have in Italy, and everybody has to know that. You know, the striking case of Silvio Berlusconi, many time Prime Minister and owner of half the media of Italy, but on the other side, the Benedetti was the membership card of Democratic Party and was owning a big part of the media also. So we have to face that, and we have to say that the information and the newspapers are used to influence public opinion in order to reach.
In terms of you, but in saying that there may well be a point in that, and that's true of newspapers across the world. But you have to recognise that if you're going to have a debate, if you want to make that point, using language like that,
you don't hit below the belt, basically.
Well, but we would never use this language with the real journalists, investigative journalists who fight to find, to search the truth, are always defended by us. We will always be in the first line to defend the journalists who do their job. But we cannot say that the journalists who give away their thoughts...
That could also mean journalists you agree with or journalists you don't agree with.
No, it's not a matter of agreement. We don't want journalists to talk nicely about the five-star movement. We want the journalists to do their job. They have to find, search, and tell people the truth. In Italy, journalists are giving opinions who are not their own, but they are given by the property of the newspapers. And the newspapers are owned in Italy by businessmen. I talked about Berlusconi, there is Caltagirone.
So you're saying is there no free press in Italy?
There is no free press, and this is the opposite of what...
Darren, I'll let you...
I mean, all I would say is, first of all, politicians shouldn't tell journalists how to do their job or what makes a good journalist a bad journalist. That's not the role of politicians in a healthy democracy. Second of all, newspapers are by their very essence businesses, and they're owned by business leaders, and they are often linked to the world of politics. That is true the world over and has been for a very long period of time. But the whole point of when you live in a world of the free press is that you accept that. You accept that. Now, if you've got problems with the editorial line a newspaper takes, or indeed the argument that the journalist takes, you take them up on the issue rather than what they're saying.
Right.
No?
I mean,
no.
This is going to be...
Italy is not the same of Great Britain or France.
This is going to be a long...
Do you agree with me that it's not normal that Silvio Berlusconi, many times Prime Minister, is the owner of half the media?
You made your point on journalists. I do want to ask you something. Sorry, we have to go, but I have your yes or no question. Talk about the Italian budget. Do you think that the government will change position? Yes or no only?
No.
Okay, so the Italian government is not changing their position. We don't have time for more.
It's a changement of Italy. It's not changing position.
All right, we'll move on to tonight's raw moment, because it's an awe moment, and it comes from France, where a little old lady thought Angela Merkel was Madame Macron. Let's take a look.
Monsieur Macron, c'est pas possible. Faites pas pleurer.
Sans un an demain, après-demain, sans un an après. C'est pas vrai.
Elle est née le 12 novembre 1917.
Kanzlerin von Deutschland.
Avec le petit-fils. Avec le petit-fils. Qu'est-ce qui prend la photo? Sois-y, gars.
Chancelier Allemagne. Chancelier Allemagne.
It's so nice.
I know, I could watch it over and over again.
And I think what's nice is that she can't believe she's in this position, which is incredible, actually, given the fact that it was an armistice day, squeezed between a French president and a German chancellor. Shows how much it moved. But maybe not that confusing, given if you'd watched the image of Macron and Merkel essentially almost hugging each other on Sunday, you might reach a different conclusion.
It's just such a sweet moment there. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Raw Politics. Do join us again tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a good evening.